Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I am so excited to continue our series on how to leverage PR for business growth. And joining us today is Bridge Ochoa. She is the founder of Bridge Ayurveda, and she helps busy working moms stop gut issues, fatigue, and inflammation holistically using food, herbs, and lifestyle as medicine in 6 weeks or less so their health isn't a problem anymore. And our case study today is going to really focus on how Bridge was able to leverage PR on social media, whether or not she landed the feature. I think this is the huge thing. And what really attracted our attention to this case study is that a lot of people feel like, okay, I'm out there submitting myself for all of these press opportunities. And when they don't land them, they feel like, that's the end of the road, right? But Bridge has really found a creative way to make PR work for you, whether or not you get picked by the journalist to be featured. So I can't wait to dive into that. But, anyways, Bridge, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Super stoked to have you here. Let's actually start with your Cubicle to CEO story. I would love to hear what launched you into full time entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so I was working as an occupational therapist in Western medicine for over 5 years, and I just was not vibing so much with that wellness, quote unquote, paradigm. So I decided to switch gears. I had a near death experience. I decided to never settle for anything less than the best after that. And I realized that Ayurveda is the best. And so I decided to go back to school, get education in Ayurveda, and then became a practitioner and started my own company from there. So just have to give the world the best.
I love that you set that standard for yourself. And you know what's interesting is you're definitely not the only guest who's been on our show who has had a near death experience that has really catapulted them into entrepreneurship. So it's interesting to see the patterns that we kind of experience. You know, there's a lot of people who come from like performance backgrounds that go into business. And then, of course, people with, similar stories to yours. So thank you for sharing that. With our case study today, I think I would like to start with maybe the lowest hanging fruit, which is what you have done, like when you do land a PR feature and you've kind of given it that extra lifespan by pinning it to your social feed, to your Instagram profile, so that when people land on your profile, it's one of the first posts they see. I'm curious, is this something you do for every single feature and you're like constantly rotating it out? Or do you like have your go-to feature that you utilize in that placement?
Yes, to all of the questions. So I feel like my recent feature was in Every Girl magazine, and so that is has been my go-to now, especially since it fits my demographic and the people that I work with. But I do like to pin as I go, as they come in, the features to the top of my social media, just to have exposure towards that article or wherever the feature is, and towards myself and my business, and to just give it that extra umph of credibility.
Yeah, I think you had submitted in some of your pre-interview information that when one of your first posts went viral in early 2025, you actually had an article like that pinned to your profile. And because of that added boost of credibility, you feel like it really helped people convert into followers, like those extra eyeballs that found you, they converted into followers because of that. And you jumped from 1,000 to 5,000 followers in just 1 month alone, which is so impressive, especially when the right people are finding you. With these articles that you're pinning, are you taking screenshots of like the entire article and creating sort of a post around that? Or are you just showing like a teaser of the article and then asking people to go to a link to read the full article? Just clarifying that piece.
So basically, what I'll do is I'll take a screenshot of what it looks like on my phone, like the title of it.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, like from a social media mindset, like that is the hook. They already have the hook already for you right there.
Right.
They have all of that media knowledge. And so they already made that for you. So it's right there. So that's the hook. That's good to go. That's the first slide. And then I just slide over like a carousel into deeper into the article, a little bit about what I've said in the article, little excerpts in that I felt like was prominent and that people should know a little bit more. And then kind of it just is kind of like a trailer essentially to
Mm.
the entire article. And then in the, caption, they can ask to have more of the article and see the link and all that stuff.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you do that kind of like DM automation setup where people comment a word and you like send them the link, or are you just like linking back to your profile and directing, or the link in bio rather, and having people go there?
I used to not have DM motivation and just do it right in my profile, but honestly, that doesn't work. So now I have DM automation. Yeah. So it boosts engagement because people want to see the thing, like write the article. They want to see it. And so it boosts engagement every time they comment. And so everybody gets more exposure that way. So you get more exposure. The person who wrote the article gets more exposure. The article gets more exposure. Everything just is boosted more that way.
Speaking of that, like everybody wins cycle, when you create these posts, these trailers, as you call them, which I love that, by the way, I feel like not enough people utilize like written text as a way to create trailers. Like people are always thinking video when they think of the word trailer. So I like how you're reframing that. But when you create these posts, do you actually tag the original reporter or journalist as a collaborator or even the media platform? Or do you just keep it as an individual post? Just curious if you've tested that.
So my theory with testing it, because yes, I have, by the way, tagged the media post and the author of the article. And my theory behind it was to create more of a relationship between that writer and myself. So
Hmm.
it's like, oh, hey, it's like we're shaking hands essentially. Like, hey, I'm a real person. This is my social media account, let's hang out. So for future articles, they can come to me if they need an expert directly. Has that happened? No, I will say. But it's just nice to just recognize people and to still have that relationship with that person, even if it doesn't amount to anything in my book.
100%, and I will
Mhm.
say just, like, as, like, further attestation to that, like, I remember when I used to, pitch clients for PR and whatnot in, like, my early days of entrepreneurship, when I was able to build a relationship with a writer, they did exactly that, where they would come back to you again and again as an expert source instead of having to go out and source elsewhere, and so I think you're definitely on the right track. Have people been receptive to accepting the collaborator tag, though, so that it shows up on their feed, or have you not tested that particular piece?
I haven't tested the collaborator part. It's more of just tagging, you
Tagging,
know?
okay,
Yeah.
good to know. For the ways that you're actually getting these features, because 'cause you've been featured in some great outlets, MSN, Yahoo News, 2190, Medium. These are all self-pitched, earned media wins, which is so exciting, especially for someone who doesn't have a traditional PR background, and I know you mentioned that 2 of your favorite platforms to find PR opportunities are, and I've okay, this one, I don't know how you say it, Bridge, so you're gonna have to tell me, but I've always
Oh,
said it in my head as HARO, but I know a lot of people say HARO. It stands for Help a Reporter Out, and then I think they rebranded a couple of years ago and then maybe went back to HARO. Anyways, how do you say it? Do you say HARO or
I say
HARO?
Harrow.
Okay.
I
So
didn't even know it was pronounced a different way.
honestly,
Yeah.
I think you're probably in the right. I think I'm in the minority. So if you hear me say Haro and you hear Bridge say Harrow, we're talking about the same thing, just so you know, as you're listening in. But anyways, Help a Reporter Out and Quoted are both platforms where journalists can post like, hey, I'm writing an article about XYZ topic. I need an expert quote or an expert opinion about, XYZ. And then anyone can submit, right, to have the chance to be featured. So can you just quickly run through for our listeners, like high level, how you approach those opportunities in a way that you feel like has been successful for you to actually get selected?
Honestly, you just have to go in there and just be yourself. So I have like a flow, I guess you could say, or a format that I follow where it's basically like, okay, in the subject line it says the topic of the article or the title of the article and then, my response to it, my bio, and then my answers to the questions that they asked from Hero or from Quoted. And the other thing about Quoted is sometimes they contact you because you have a profile. So
Oh, okay.
other than those things, like the profile, I might tweak like a little bit here and there if things have changed and like, or the bio, I would, tweak a little bit. And then the answers is just really from my heart. I tend to be an overthinker and I don't know if anyone else in your audience is an overthinker, but I tend to go that way, especially because I just get lost in the books of everything. Ayurveda is so vast, and there's so much book knowledge to go with it, but there's also experiential knowledge, and I think that that is what what moves the needle the most for people here in real life and for the people reading the article too. So I use my experiential knowledge, also combine it with the book knowledge and then answer those questions from there and really just have them just straight from the heart.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree, by the way. I feel like most people are able to better see themselves applying knowledge when it's told in an experiential or like story based way. So I love that you really try to incorporate your personal lived experiences in your answers. When you're answering the prompt from the journalist, do you find that you have a higher chance of being responded to or selected if you literally just like bullet point answer their direct questions that way? Or are you trying to craft like I guess, like a full sentenced, response that's easily, I guess, like, plucked and quoted, kind of like a almost like a soundbite? Like, are you answering it like sound bites, or are you answering it just bullet point, bullet point, bullet point?
A little bit of both, depending on the question itself. I like to be clear and give just enough detail. I feel like if they were looking for more detail, then they ask, and then that would be a
Mm,
good sign, and then you have a
right.
collaboration from there. So I like to apply not like, I don't want to say the mini skirt rule where it's like, just enough to cover it, but it's enough to cover it without going overboard, right? Like
Mm,
without going into a full Ayurvedic explanation, because Ayurveda is different. So most of these media outlets are not looking for, hey, I'm looking for an Ayurvedic practitioner. Most of them are looking for dietitians, nutritionists, doctors, dermatologists, right? They don't know what an Ayurvedic practitioner is. And so I have to like advocate for not only myself, but for this medical system that has been around since 3000 BCE. So like I have to like show what that is and why it's relevant and why it's so powerful within that frame of reference without giving like the entire story of Ayurveda in in a little answer to a question. So it's about just, like, having that mindset of, like, "Hey, there you have to outbeat." God, I hate saying that, but it is what it is. You have to outperform somebody who they're asking for. They're
mm,
asking for a dietitian or a personal trainer in this little excerpt, and they might get one of those, but they might also get me, and I have to say, this is would be Ayurveda's perspective on it, and this is what Ayurveda is. I usually give, like, a little expert on, like, what Ayurveda is, why
mm.
it's so powerful, and then I go into the answers to their questions.
That's helpful. So, basically, rule of thumb, err on the side of brevity, enough where if they didn't ask you follow-up questions, it's still a complete thought, but leave room for expansion, like, leave room for more details if they required them. Am I understanding
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah, and, like, I just feel like they're coming from a place where they have to get this thing out and done. Like, they don't really care. At the end of the day, I'm just being real. So, like, it's, like, due on Wednesday, and it's a Monday. So they just needs, like, "Oh, that's a quick thing that I can say, and I can pull what she says just from that. I can copy, paste, boom, put that in there." Because if it's too long and too, like, wordy, then they probably won't use it.
That is so true too. I think that's a great tip just for people to know about media pitches in general. Like your job is really to make the reporter, journalist, or host's life easier, right? So the easier they can skim your answer and like feel like, okay, this is ready to pull, ready to use copy paste, like you said, the more likely they are to use you as an expert source. So great tip there. Let's talk, Bridge, a little bit about the opposite side. This is really what attracted me to this case study is how you've been so creative when you don't land the feature. And a great example of this was there was an article where I think they ended up choosing, I think, a dietitian, right? If you want to tell us a little bit about like what the premise of the article was and how you created content from not getting chosen, give us the rundown there.
Yeah, I mean, there are several of those, and like I said before, it's just within my field, it's pretty unlikely that they're going to choose me, right? So I get kind of fired. I don't know, maybe that's just part of my personality, but I kind of get fired up about being the underdog. And so I'm like, "Ooh, let's go." And so, if they're looking for a dietitian or whatever, and a dietitian responds to that, then they're probably going to go with the dietitian. Let's just be real. And so it was several of these different posts. And from what I remember, there was one about like for weight loss, fall fruits for weight loss. And then there was another one about, making fall Halloween treats healthier as well. And I remember specifically looking at because I remember the fall fruits for weight loss one. I got excited for that because a lot of my clients, they end up having weight loss without even trying to. So it's
Mhm.
like a little area of expertise of mine, but not directly. It's indirect weight loss, essentially. I went and looked up the article to see what that person had said. And some of that stuff I agreed with, and some of it I didn't. So I was like, wow, this is such great content for me. Such great, because it's a little bit stirring and it's just belief shifting as well. They really took the approach of like vitamins and minerals, these macronutrients, the carbs, the amount of sugar in it, that type of approach, which is very mechanistic. And Ayurveda looks at it just differently.
Interesting. So you read this article and you were like, okay, there are some points that I feel like I could contend or show a different perspective for. And then you created a reaction video, was it? Where did you like pull up the article, green screen it, and kind of point out the places where you're like, hey, they said this, but here is where I would differ? Or how did you approach the actual content piece?
I did one that was a reaction. That was basically me saying, and it wasn't green screen, although I will do that next time. um, it was me saying, like, hey, I didn't get picked for this article, but here's what I would say differently. Right.
That's
And
a good
then
hook. To hear the rest of this episode and unlock weekly subscriber only content and community access, join us as a premium subscriber at cubicletoceo.co/podcast. The link is below in our show notes.